All right, I'm rolling. How's it going, everybody? I hope everyone have had a very happy Christmas. Hope you got what you want. My name is Mark. I call my channel Mark's Music Place. And if you enjoy the content, once again, please subscribe, hit the bell. Hopefully, YouTube/Google will give you the notification when I post these videos. And also, thumbs up. You know, everyone knows the deal. Write some comments, all that good stuff. But I wanted to make a video because I saw a video. Once again, I make these videos like this because something triggered for me to make these videos. And I'm not going to necessarily pinpoint this one video, but if you want to know, post a comment and I'll put a link, or I'll tell you where the video is. But I'll tell you what motivated me to make this video right quick. This is my biggest pet peeve when people get on YouTube, because here's what they're not understanding. It's kind of like, I'll go before I go into details about the videos. Kind of like when I made a video talking about, is Behringer any good? I never specifically actually pinpointed a specific model by Behringer, because I don't want. I'm talking about some of the Behringer gear that I figured maybe, in my opinion, might not have been that great. But I'm not going to give any specific numbers per se to what some of the gear that I thought wasn't good, because some people might actually have, you know, quite a bit amount of success with it. You know, and if I did own some of the gear, I wasn't really trying to purposely do that when I did that video. It was just an opinion. Now, but I'm not going to specifically take a piece of Behringer gear as an example and put a specific model number and put it as my title in YouTube, so it'll draw views and it bashes that actual particular name, because some people somewhere is actually having quite a bit of success with that Behringer piece of gear. And that goes with any piece of gear. But the reason why I'm motivated to make the videos, because here's the thing. There's some people out there that want to bash Clark Technic, and I don't know if some people out there are bashing the Clark Technic from a certain video channel that was bashing the Clark Technic, and there's other videos that are bashing the Clark Technic. Yet there are other videos that are having great success with Clark Technic stuff, including myself. And then, you know, it's the problem that I have with these people is that, let me tell people that watch my channel, and pass this on if you not, you know, if you have people that are interested in audio. Let's say just past Christmas that someone bought a Clark Technic 1176 clone, or their EQP plug, their EQP, their EQ, the EQP, the Clark Technic EQP clone, or let's say you bought the Clark Technic KT2A, or whatever, the LA2A clone, or whatever, any Clark Technic, or that could be Art, or it could be Behringer, or it could be any of the names, Warm Audio, Stam Audio, or whatever. And what kills me is people get on there, they'll get on these channels, and then it's like these people go on the expectation that when you buy this gear, that, for example, you may be disappointed because it doesn't sound exactly like the clone that is emulating. It's like, you know, it's like these people are the biggest. I don't know how to describe it, because for me, when I bought my Clark Technic 1176s, I had absolutely zero expectations for them to sound like real Universal Audio 1176s. My point was that I wanted the Clark Technic to function, to have the functionality of compression, functionality like 1170, like the Universal 1176. I don't expect it to sound like the 1176, But another big pet peeve of mine is, as long as it is working and it compresses, and they do compress and they do work. I know for a fact that when people do comparison videos between a real authentic whatever piece of gear, the clone, and maybe even a plug-in, there may sound a little different. But the thing is, when you have to come back and you listen, and you have to listen to the other one, they're so distinctively minute in the difference. In other words, you like, then you go back, that little sounds a tad, well, I don't know, the Clark Technic sounds a little, it's so hard to really distinguish the Clark Technic from a UAD or a Plug-in Alliance or Waves or Slate or whatever. And you're like listening real hard. Wait a minute. Okay, you A/B 3, 4, 5 times. Like, I don't really hear, whatever the case may be. Or even the real 1176 Universal Audio 1176-2 with Clark Technic. Let's say the Clark Technic sounded just a hair bit thinner in sound. Do you honestly think your audience that listen to music is not going to buy your record because you use the Clark Technic 1176 in the mix? They're not going to even hear that. When you have all the stuff mixed going together, drums, bass, keys, guitar, horns, vocals, sound effects, you got delays in the mix, you got reverbs in the mix, you got all this stuff, and you got not only got compressors on each channel, you got bus compressors going, you got a master bus, you got a master EQ. Way down embedded in there is a Clark 1176 used on a vocal, or used on a bass, or used on some string or whatever, used on some room mics or whatever. Do you honestly think that someone's gonna be sitting there jamming to the music like, wait a minute, hold up, stop. Nah, that's something wrong with that song, man. They used a pair of Clark Tech 1176s to crush the room's mics. People don't even think like that. They don't even know. The average person knows absolutely nothing about studio and gear and mixing and recording techniques and microphones and preamps and plug-in. They can care less. If it's that. Now I can understand if you had your 1176 and it was sitting there making all these crackling noise on the mix. Yeah, of course you're not going to use that. That's going to be obvious. But if it's so where you have to A, B, C, and D compare, and they're so like, well, it sounds a little different, no one's going to hear that or care. And that's my biggest, and it boils down to one more thing on this that drives me absolutely nuts. It's the same thing that is like people would say, I got to have UAD plugins or Plug-in Alliance or Sound Toys or Isotope or whatever. And this is why I like Graham of the Recording Revolution, how he says your stock plugins, a Behringer B1, a simple interface with your DAW is plenty to make great music. You can build a studio for $350. That's why I like him, because he uses a whole lot of common sense to is letting people know that if you master the skills of those basic things, you can use your stock plugins in your DAW, and almost all interfaces sound absolutely amazing today. Even the $200 or $300 ones, because they're pretty much using all the same AD to DA converter chips. And there's a certain channel that said the same thing. He said you got people buying $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 interfaces, and you got other people buying $200 interfaces. And they did. And one of the ones that had the best sound quality in a blind test was the Behringer. And this is in writers. People are like, I can't believe it. We made it because they found out it was the Behringer. Realized it's the same AD to DA converter chips. It's the other stuff that converts, that separates them, and how they can handle processing and multi-processing that separates the $3,000 one from a $200 one. It's not the actual converting chip that converts it from digital to analog and analog to digital. But most people don't know that, because people get psychologically sucked into the marketing of gear. And the more expensive gear, they do a better job because they make more money using psychological tricks to make you think you have to have a $4,000 piece here, a $3,000 piece there, $10,000. All that stuff is nice, but most people cannot hear the difference. This is why a cheap mic, which is a very affordable mic, the SM57, SM58, those mics are $80 to $100 each, and even top line studios still use the SM57 and SM58. So that goes to show you, it's not the price of gear. Some people feel happy if they buy the price of gear, right? It's psychological. If I spend $3,000 on a preamp, I feel better that my vocals or whatever are going to come out better because I spent $3,000. But if I spend $200 and you match them and you can't hear any difference in the audio, it has to be drastically different. But if it's only one $3,000 unit is 100%, and this little, like my Art Pro channel right here is 98%. It's like people are not going to hear the difference. People get stuck on that, and they make these videos. So to round down, and that's the reason I made that, because there are probably some people who watch my channel that bought the Clark technique or own Clark technique, or Warm Audio or Stem Audio or some of the other clones or whatever. And these people out here, and what kills me, these people out there, the Clark technique is averaging $200, $300, maybe $400. Universal Audio, $1,100 to $2,000. They like, well, it doesn't sound like 1170. The Universal Audio. Then they go buy the 11. Quit complaining and go buy the Universal Audio 1176. If it's that much of an audio difference to you, because I guarantee your audience don't know. It's like when people, it's like, and I'll ramp up my last, because this is a rant. It just gets under my skin that people want to get on here and they make these videos having these high expectations, but your pockets are cheap. When I got cheap, when I'm spending $200 or $300 on a unit, I don't expect it to sound like a $3,000 unit. I just expect the unit to work. And every unit that I bought that works, that I only paid $200 or $300 for, they work. And because everything else is mixing skills, recording skills. That's what it is. It's recording and mixing skills. It's not because it's a $3,000 mic. And I made a video about someone else that, that's why I made a video about is your gear good enough? Because some people out there, it's like they feel like their testicles, feel like their testicles are bigger because they spent $3,000, $4,000. That's why I don't throw, because I didn't pay this. I'll use an example. I got a really good deal on an Avalon preamp. This normally goes for $3,000 at Sweetwater. I got it for a quarter of that. I didn't pay $500 for it. It's an Avalon. I don't use it and everything. I find myself using a lot of like my Art or my Focusrite and other preamps other than that one. Because they all work and they all work well. I've done videos where people listen to it. People, when I did a video about how it do a Michael Jackson, that was all done with the Focusrite. Now, do I think this one sound a little warmer? Yes, but it has more options. As a more, the EQ and the compressors, so that's what's going to change a little bit of the character. But that's a great sounding pro channel. But to end the video, I wish people would stop making videos buying gear that they know they only spend $200 or $300, $400 on something, and they want to get on YouTube and bash it because it don't sound like a $2,000 or $3,000 unit. That's annoying to me. I heard reviews, and you can't go on these reviews because the reviews that you're hearing about gear is, I love it because it's doing what it's supposed to do. It's working. It's compressing. That's why they love it. More realistic don't expect a Clark technique to sound like a Universal Audio 1176. Who does that? I don't expect any gear. The only thing out of my gear, if I sit there with my Avalon preamp, my Avalon 737, if I went in there, that's a $3,000. That's normally what it goes for. I don't feel, it's kind of like I don't go in there and I had this expectation that it's Avalon, and all of a sudden the Behringer just sounds better. something's wrong with the Avalon. But at the same time, with the Behringer preamp, I don't expect it to sound like the Avalon. I just expect it to work. And that's what happens with a lot of people when they get on these gear. They, I'm like, yeah. And the thing is, sometimes you want to have a little bit of different character, because every pro studio engineer out there that has 1176s say they all sound different. And that's because electronics, over time, the capacitors, the diodes, the resistors, the caps, all that kind of stuff changes because of the heat. The same thing with consoles, the same thing with speaker. Anything analog that uses electronic components will change over time because of the heat. Because the heat is a big enemy of anything electronic. That's why you have heat sinks. You're trying to contain the heat. So to sum up the video, about people that buy Clark Technic or Behringer or whatever the case may be, when you buy this gear, you cannot possibly realistically expect it to sound like the counterpart that it's cloning. Not even Warm Audio or Stem Audio or even these clones that you may pay even more money for. The great thing about Warm Audio, as an example, and you have a Neve or an API that you spend $3,000 or $4,000 for a Neve or an API preamp, and you buy the Warm Audio or whatever the case, Heritage Audio or whatever the case, and there's only $799 or $999. What I like about those prices of Warm Audio and Heritage Audio and Ventec is they can make gear that can sound pretty much as good as the real thing they're cloning. But I don't expect anyone to buy the Warm Audio and to think that Warm Audio is supposed to sound identical to the Neve. It's not. It's going to sound super, super close. And when it's super, super close, that's what's important, because when it sounds just as good, it doesn't sound like the Neve, but it sounds as good as the Neve, that's what's going to matter, because people, when you mix the stuff in the song, that's what's happening for people to listen to the song. They can't tell when it sounds as good as the real counterpart. Then that's because people can't tell that you use the Warm Audio compared to the Neve. No one can do that. Not even Crislo Algae or Dave Pensado or Bob Clearmountain or Sylvia Massey, or I can just go Greg Wells. I'm talking all these mixing engineers, Michael Brower. None of them guys or ladies can tell the difference. And you'd be surprised. The top ones, and they've said this. They can't tell. It's like when you sit back and would have never known that Stevie Wonder recorded a Sunset Sound compared to when he recorded Electric Lady, compared to when he recorded in England. You can't tell the difference you can't tell the difference unless you look at the credits. And then when you have the credits, then you're like, okay, well, he made the songs in the key of life. You gotta look and see where he recorded. That's how close all the recording studios are, even though they can have totally different consoles, monitors, outboard gear. But when you listen to a Stevie Wonder song, and I'm just naming one, I don't care if it's Paula Abdul, it could be Madonna, it could be Drake, it could be Dr. Dre, it doesn't really matter. It could be Carrie Underwood, Trisha Yearwood, it doesn't matter what genre. You cannot tell what recording studios. You said to Carrie Underwood, oh yeah, she recorded last out. She went to LA and recorded United, what used to be Ocean Way. Okay. And then all of a sudden you watching a studio tour and, John McBride of Blackbird said, yeah, Carrie Underwood recorded this song. I was like, oh, wow, I didn't know she recorded that there. That's how close these studios are. So that's what ramps me up. This is a ramp because people get so caught up because it's like they're embarrassed to realize that, you know what, it's a Clark Technic. I have no shame in my Clark Technic stuff because I know it works. Do I expect it to sound like the clones that they're imitating? No. You shouldn't expect that. It's it's kind of like a generic cereal to the real cereal. You've seen those I don't know, King Vitamin that look like Captain Crunch, and then there's actual Captain Crunch. You buy the King Vitamin and you eat the King Vitamin and you're like, oh, this doesn't really taste like Captain Crunch. Then go buy the Captain Crunch if you're going to complain about it, because you shouldn't expect it. It's King Vitamin. It's not Captain Crunch. Now, does it taste, does it have a really, really similar taste? Yeah, it tastes like Captain Crunch. Then that's all that freaking is doing its job. So, in the end, now that I got my rant done, for my people that watch the channel, I'm sure they definitely understand why I make these videos. To sum the video up, just remember, if you buy a piece of gear and you have a expectation, just remember that if you think that you're going to get by because you want a Neve or an API or whatever, you want this universal audio or Manly or whatever the case may be, and you sit there and think, well, look at the price of that piece of gear, and those prices average $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a unit. Summit Audio, whatever the case may be. It can be, I can start going to names because there's hundreds of them. I have a book that named hundreds. There's probably 1,000 audio companies out there, ranging from microphones to speakers. There's thousands of them, and some are on the high end of the price, some in the mid range, some on the low price. If you think that you're going to I see a clone like a Clark Technic, but I expect it to sound like a $2,500 Universal 1176. You're delusional. This is supposed to sound identical to a Universal 1176. Then you're delusional. Period. But if you sit there and say, okay, well, if there is a Clark Technic, I don't expect it to sound like the Universal 1176, but I do expect it to compress when I hit 4-to-1 or 8-to-1, 16-1 or whatever, all buttons in or whatever, is reacting on the input because it's a fixed threshold, is reacting on the output, and is reacting on the release and attack, the fast attack and the release. And it's doing what it's supposed to do. Then you have normal expectations. And if it does well, no, it doesn't sound like a Universal 1176, but it's doing its job well. It works. It sounds, it audibly works. Then you should be happy, because then you should be happy that you got something that works. It sounds audible. It sounds good, and it works. And the great thing about it, you only spent $200 or $300, would prove the point that you don't need to have a $2,500 Universal Audio 1176 to get for it to work like 1176. But you got people that get out here and they're so name brand bent that they think that all they mind is like API. Now that's why I made, or SSL or whatever. Those are all great companies because all the pros have used all those names of companies, whether it's Pooltech, Universal Audio, SSL, Neve, or whatever. Let me check my time because I'm about out of time. Okay. Whether it's all those names, because that's what people aren't, I'm not stupid in this thing. I know they troll videos like I do, and they go and look at all the studio tours like Blackbird, or they look at, United or East West or Electric Lady or Hit Factory and all these top studios, and they're looking at their console, they're looking at their speaker monitors, they're looking at all their rack gear, and they're seeing all the top names, and it's automatically comes into play that must be the gear you got to get, and we all would love to have it. Of course, is unrealistically that majority of us can't get it. If that's the case, this is why we start home studios in the first place, because no one can really afford to buy a building. Plus a home studio is excellent for convenience. But anyhow, what I'm trying to say is this. When you buy your gear, if you can buy lower price gear and it's going to do what it can do, then you ought to be like, oh, well, I'm ahead of the game because it's doing what, especially if it's working in a mix. Because people would do standalone comparisons. How about let's listen to it in a complete mix? If you're going to complain about the Clark Technic or whatever, the Behringer or whatever, put it in a complete mix. Don't A/B it by doing vocals alone or bass alone and obvious. No, let's put it in a full mix. But you know, A/B it with it in a full mix. Like, okay, I got this Clark Technic 1176. It's on the bass, but it's got the drums going, the hi-hat, the tom. I mean, everything's going. Vocals, bass, keyboards, guitars, all the effects, percussion, horns or whatever, you know, synth sounds or keyboards or whatever. All that's because that's how people listen to music. People don't listen to, you know, whatever you're working on. No one listens to the track singly by itself. No one listens to just the vocal itself unless you release an acapella. But no one listens to the vocals by it. They listen to the entire song mixed and mastered, because mastering affects the entire mix. And they're going to, you know, so anyhow, I'm about done with the video. I just want to emphasize that's why that gets under my skin, because I know for a fact that no one can hear a Clark Tech 1176 in a mix. I know that for a fact. So thanks for watching, and I hope y'all have a happy holidays, and we'll see you in the next one.